Today's guest is John Kanarowski, a seasoned entrepreneur, technologist, and sales strategist who's been ahead of the curve in AI remote work and customer experience for nearly 2 decades. John's journey started in the early days of the internet when he co-founded Deal, one of the web's early marketplace experiments. Since then, he's built and scaled multiple startups, advised high-growth SaaS companies, and now leads a company at the forefront of AI-driven customer support, helping complex product teams improve response times, accuracy, and user experience. In this episode, we talk about the evolution of remote work, the power of freemium models, and why empathy is a competitive edge in sales and leadership. John shares how AI is reshaping go-to-market strategy, what it takes to align product with real customer needs, and how resilience and humility continue to shape his growth, both professionally and personally. Enjoy this episode of Peaking. John, welcome to Peaking.
Thanks, Wyatt, and really glad to be here myself.
Awesome. I'm actually on my way to Park City tomorrow. How's it looking there right now?
Cool. I did not realize that. So it's actually looking really nice. The last couple weeks, the weather's been absolutely brilliant. Right now, it's a little overcast, a little breeze, but it's been a beautiful month so far. So hopefully, you have a good weekend or week. What are you coming out here for?
Yeah, a wedding. My cousin's getting a wedding there.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I haven't been to Park City yet. I've driven through Salt Lake once on my way, my big move to Denver, but have not spent too much time in Utah at all. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful place. I can't blame you for. Did you go back? I've kind of been following your career I looked at your career on LinkedIn, and it looks like you've been just about everywhere in the United States for different job opportunities. What was that? Have you actually been traveling all over, moving all over, or you just work remotely and those are where the places were headquartered?
Yeah, that's right. It probably looks like I've been moving more than I have. So um, I did live here in the late '90s here in Salt Lake. Then I went to school in Boston and worked out in San Francisco for a few years. Then moved to Denver. So I was in Denver, out where you are, for like 7 years, and then after that moved here to Park City and have been here ever since. But the companies that I've worked for since I've been here are actually based outside of the state. So I've worked for a California-based company, Texas-based, Boston-based, and then now New York-based. So, but have been working remotely for like going on 20 years. And so, like when the pandemic came around and everyone was talking about working from home, I was like, what's the news here? This is how I've been functioning for many years. But yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah,
that's the quick story.
that's incredible. I mean, you've been able to be. That's it was a whole different side of enterprise or just business in general. People were doing that before, and then it became this big topic of conversation when everyone had to do it. And now it's the big topic of conversation. Everyone come back.
Yeah.
You experienced the golden years of Denver, I think. You had the best, and then left when it was probably the right time to leave.
Yeah. We definitely enjoyed our time there. I moved there with my wife, and I have two kids, and both of our kids were born in Denver. So we'll always have a really close tie to the city there. And one of the things is while I was there, I became a Broncos fan. It's kind of hard to avoid, but I first was amazed by how excited everyone was by the Broncos, and then before I knew it, I was one of those people that was excited about the Broncos, and so we actually kept that. And my son and I now are Broncos fans. We actually go back once a year, or try to go back once a year for a game, and we have the last few years. So
That's so awesome.
yeah.
That's rooting for the local team is the way to go. There's so many exclusionary fans are like, yeah, I was a fan for longer. It's like, I want to root for the local team. It's such a fun environment to be around people that are cheering for the same team. And when the city team does well, it just becomes such a fun city. I was really hoping New York would win the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA because I'm headed to New York next week, and that would have been just such a cool time to be in New York City. Let's jump into business. So you actually
Yeah,
you co-founded Deal Deal. I've been on that website hundreds of times. They have this huge pop-ups like book this auction now, or like
yeah.
spend 10 cents, you could win an iPhone. So,
Yeah, I
that's
think it's under new leadership and ownership now, so it's evolved over the years. But back when I was involved with Deal Deal, this was like, if you remember the time, this was like um, the very beginning phase of the internet, and like eBay was still a new thing, and there was an on sale, and Amazon was still new. So it was during that era that my brother and I started Deal Deal, and
cool.
so in that first wave of internet innovation. Yeah, crazy times, and it grew really quickly and was a big success. So I was very fortunate to have been part of that.
So were you always a sales business forward guy? You're not, you weren't ever on the development end?
Yeah, that's right. So I've always been on the business side of organizations, selling, marketing, partnerships, the whole sort of go to market side, and that's been since the beginning and until now. And educationally, my background is not an engineer. I'm from a family of engineers, so surrounded by more technical minded people, but I say that I majored in reading old books. So I was sort of a humanities guy, and that was my focus, and which really helps. I mean, you develop sort of a critical thinking mindset, you develop communication skills, people skills, things like that, and I found that's come in really helpful in business, in particular, in like the functions that I've been involved in on the go to market side.
Yeah, and perspective. You just learn so much about other things that have already happened, and hopefully avoid the same mistakes. My first boss gave me a quote that she didn't make up, but
Uh-huh.
I won't ever forget it. She says, "Smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from others." You don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
make the
no,
mistakes yourself if you know what to avoid already.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Good quote.
Very cool. And now you are leading Implicit, and in the AI revolution, the product itself seems like it's inevitable. I think every company will use something like this, and I guess it's your intention to make sure that they use Implicit. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, talk a little bit about the product. What are you trying to build?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick like 60-second overview, which for me takes probably 120 seconds, but I'll try to keep it to 60 seconds. So what we're focused on is product support, and transforming how companies with complex products handle customer support. So think about like if you have a laptop and you have a blue screen and you have to get in touch with the company. Maybe you call them, maybe you email them, maybe you chat with them, um, so helping companies help customers with technical problems with their products. So that's where we're applying the AI. So we're going very deep in that specific vertical, building up domain specific models that help companies deliver a better experience to their customers. And so I can go into a lot more detail around the technology that enables that, but it's really around enabling companies to improve customer support, customer success, those functions for complex product companies.
So, what does the out of box functionality look like? Customer wants to use your product, you get the sale. What does that implementation look like, and what does the user experience look like?
Yeah, so we've built a purpose-built application for what we call product expertise, and so we get customers up and running with like a basic instance within hours. So it's very fast compared to now. If you were to build this with like off-the-shelf AI tools, and there's a lot of great tools out there, and you can certainly build something similar over time. But like you to build something that we can give you and get you up and running on in like a couple hours would take weeks to get like a POC up and running, and then months to roll out. And we can get customers there basic instance up in hours and complete a rollout within a matter of days. So it's the key benefit of working with us. So there's like that time to value piece, time to reaping these benefits. And then the other thing that really separates us is being able to give more accurate answers right out of the gate. So the last thing you want to do is to set up like an AI system that's for your, let's say it's a co-pilot for your customer support and customer success teams. And the last thing you want is to put that in front of them and have like a significant amount of inaccuracy. So like very common for customers that we've worked with where they've built something internally, they get to 70-80% accuracy. And then some of those answers may be accurate, but really incomplete. And then they lose the hearts and minds of their internal users because people want and expect a higher level of accuracy. And so we can start right out of the gate in the 90% accuracy and then build from there over time. And that really helps with getting adoption, which is absolutely critical to getting business impact. And so that's where we really differentiate and provide more value. And overall too, there's a lower risk approach, right? Like certainly, yes, you can go in and try to build this on your own, but that's higher risk, right? If maybe you just don't succeed, maybe you pick the wrong technologies, or you don't have the right resources, or just something else that comes up and it gets derailed. So it's higher risk to build versus buy in this particular area that we're active in.
And was this your idea? Were you brought on as the CEO, or are you a founder here? How did this begin?
Yeah, I was brought on as a CEO, so I wasn't the founder. So we had a great founding team and developed some really compelling core technology that we've leveraged as the foundation to what we're doing. And we've actually been working with the U.S. Air Force on developing that core technology. So had some research grants that help support that. So we're a dual use company in that sense. So both federal DoD customers as well as commercial customers. And then that was the foundation. And then we rebuilt a new commercial product from the ground up over the last 18 months, and we launched that in March. And so that's what we're taking to market right now. And in our target market for this are companies like, think of like B2B software companies, cybersecurity companies, hardware companies that have complex hardware and software products integrated, aerospace companies. So think of those types of companies that have really pretty complex products where the questions kind of really are specific to their products, and where the answers are non-obvious, and where you can't turn to like a general purpose AI like a ChatGPT or Google Gemini and get credible answers. So that's where we can really help out. And how we help out, like there's technology, but there's also knowledge sources. So we enable customers to load private and public knowledge sources. And then we create a knowledge graph off of that, and then the queries that the users ask are answered based off of that knowledge graph, which is based off of those documents and only those documents. So that's how, I was talking up front about accuracy and eliminating hallucinations. That's how the technology fundamentally sets boundaries and guidelines around the LLM and gives a much more accurate answer. And if the LLM can't, so our LLM can't answer the question, it is also clear, it clearly states that, right? So it says, like, look, based on the knowledge that I have in my knowledge base, I cannot answer that question. So that's how you don't fabricate or hallucinate answers based on missing information.
It's not going to Wikipedia to see what the internet thinks about the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Or some user forum out there where there's like 10 different theories presented, and maybe the LLM picks one of those and kind of creates that as potentially the truth. So we're not, or by design, we avoid mistakes like that, and that's how we give more accurate answers.
target market decision to go after these hyper complex organizations, was that made early on? Was that part of a conversation that you were a part of? Uh, Obviously, it seems like they would have the highest need for it. I mean, maybe that's not obvious, but I would think so. How did
Yeah, that's
the company decide on the ICP?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think every startup kind of goes through this where you have a theory about who your ICP is, and then you engage with them, and then you learn more about the problem, you learn more about the dynamics in those organizations, and so when we started designing this and recruited design partners. We recruited companies like Apple and Dell and Bosch, so very large, complex product companies, and learned just a tremendous amount from them. I mean, we were very fortunate to work with their teams and learn about the problem and learn about how they're thinking about it, what different alternatives in terms of solutions they're considering. So we learned a tremendous amount, and that kind of we built that into our product. And so then we made a decision, though, not to focus on that very large enterprise market. And so why was that? So we realized that they had strategic reasons to actually build something similar to what we were designing with them. Whereas like a medium enterprise company, so think of like a B2B software company with 1,000 or 2,000 employees, they have the same problem, the same needs, but they don't necessarily have the same strategic interest to try to build their own solution. And so that's where we've kind of honed in on a market that really kind of fits with the problem we're trying to solve and what the technology is designed to solve, and also a buyer that's motivated to actually buy a commercial product versus build an in-house solution.
How many times are you in client meetings where, or maybe I don't know if you'd be on a demo at this point, but it seems
Mhm.
like these companies would be shopping for this tool, and you just have to prove that your tool is the one they want to use. Is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case. I mean, people generally get the idea, the use case very quickly. I mean, I think people realize that AI can be absolutely transformative in the customer support space, generally speaking. So that's the overall category that we're in, and then we're focused on the very specific, complex product questions. So people get the concept very quickly. And then it's a matter of, okay, what is the best way to solve this? What are the alternatives? And so that's where people spend more time. So they obviously, there's a couple different ways of solving it. I mean, for one, you can use like a general purpose LLM. So that's one, or you can use, and that meaning like direct your customers to like a Google Gemini or a Chat GPT and just hope that they'll get a really good answer there. So that's one alternative. Obviously, there's pros and cons to that. The next sort of alternative is to use one of those tools, but like an enterprise version thereof, like a OpenAI or Google Gemini's enterprise version, and build a RAG solution. So like a retrieval augmented generation, and what that is like the first solution that people go to, and and people do this, and in some ways our customers need to do this and fail before they engage with us because they believe that's the way to go, but it leads to solutions that are inaccurate. So that's kind of one piece, but then also a lot of times these solutions don't scale. So like it's not, even if you're getting an answer, let's say 70 or 80% of the times correctly, um, but it's taking like 30 to 60 seconds to get that answer, that's not a viable solution for an enterprise, right? And so just from an architecture perspective, if you scale out the size of the documents, you really struggle with a simple RAG. And so that's where people have realized, nope, we need to actually add on to that. And so the first sort of add-on is the graph piece. So we have a graph database that we've added to the RAG solution, and then and that gets you to a certain level, but also then you hit a ceiling. And then the next piece is adding on an agentic workflow onto that, which then enables you to answer different types of questions in the best possible way, and so have different experts for that. And so that gets you another several percentage points. And so in terms of accuracy, and so we're constantly evolving our solution and making it better and better. And customers realize, like, look, they could go down that same path, but they would have to invest a lot in the core technology, but then they would also have to invest a lot in resources over time to keep improving it and keep staying current. And so they realize that, and they're like, yeah, you know what, let's partner with an expert in this area, and get up and running, like I was talking about before, get up and running in a matter of hours and days, and essentially de-risk the project and generate the value that they know they can generate.
What is the common positive customer feedback? Is it, wow, I can't believe it took us so long to get this, or this is saving me, several minutes, hours every day? What's the user feedback?
A very good question. So it kind of evolves a bit over like the onboarding process and like the customer journey, right? Like, so initially the wow effect is around speed, right? Like, hey, if we have a conversation, we have a demo, somebody says they're interested, they say they want to do a POC, I say, great, like, point us to your current knowledge base, and then our team will load those documents, today, and then we can do a demo tomorrow and show you a system that tomorrow already gives you 90+% accuracy. And that, when you actually go through that motion with somebody and they're like, wow, that was really amazing. So just the speed to like highly accurate answers. And then we, as a next step in the process, we do a proof of concept, and we literally hand over the keys to the customer, and they can go in and add documents to their particular AI instance. They can rerun the taxonomy creation tools, and further like improve the accuracy of how it handles questions, but also broaden the aperture as well. So the more documents you load in that are then added to the knowledge graph, the more questions that you can answer as well. And so people see that during the POC, and that's the next wow effect. They're like, okay, you know what, I can cover off a broad set of my customer questions in really a short amount of time at a really high level of accuracy. And so then suddenly they see, okay, this is not just like a cool science project. This is like a functioning tool, and it's only been like a couple days, and we've gotten to this point already. So as people go along that journey, they definitely have multiple wow moments, and then also like there's also this sort of like confidence piece where they know they've wanted to, for years they've known they've wanted to do an AI project, and they just haven't found the right way to do it, and now, or the right partner, and then they realize, oh, this is actually their moment to create an AI and have those wow experiences that they have, share those with their colleagues, as well, and kind of be the sponsor of a really cool, successful project. And yeah, so that's kind of how that early onboarding journey kind of takes place. And
And
we get, yeah, go ahead.
the user can be anyone within the company, and then you would set permissions based on what person could access what information.
Yeah, typically it could be anyone. Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who has a product related question, wants to be smarter about their customers, their company's products, they could be a user. Typically, when we look at like, okay, who is sponsoring our projects, who's like the visionary that's leading the project, it's typically a senior leader within like the customer support or customer success, or sometimes sales, but it's generally in those support functions. Or it could also be a product leader that wants to make sure that everyone else in their company has really good product knowledge. But it's typically somebody like that that is the sponsor. Now, sometimes we'll start talking to somebody that reports up to them, and they'll bring the idea to that person. But we typically, at that sort of departmental leader for support success, that's where we typically find our sponsors that really then take the torch and carry the project forward for success across the organization. But yeah, back to your question, in terms of like users within the company, it's anyone that wants to be smarter about their company's products.
And then you're selling licenses to the company or per seat or?
Yeah, we have a couple different options. We are actually rolling out a free version as well. So like a lot of companies, we're offering a free version. At this point, we're taking signups for that, and then it's going to get launched here in the near future. And so that's like the easiest way to kind of dip your toe in the water. Obviously, there some features that we haven't turned on for that product or that version of the product. But then as soon as you start seeing value, you can upgrade, and so there's like an upgrade path as usage expands within an organization. So there's a couple different ways of going about that, and like a lot of products, as you kind of add users, the per seat price goes down, and then also if you're using this in a customer facing way where like your end customer, your end user is actually using it, then there's a per session fee, and also that per session fee goes down as you increase your volume. So there's like improving economics, improving ROI as you expand usage as well.
Was the freemium model your idea, or how did the company come to that decision to put a free version out there?
I would love to take credit for it, but it wasn't actually my idea. It's actually our head of marketing, his idea.
There's a company in Boulder that just raised their Series A free play. Shout out Colorado startups. We love to see success in Colorado. They have a call it's assesses the results of different LLMs and ranks them. And evals. So they just dropped a freemium model as well. It makes so much sense in the AI world because you don't know what's hype and what's very useful.
Yeah.
And if you can try something and then you're like, okay, I can't live without this, then you're much more likely to purchase. And I think I would be curious, you might know the answer. The referral rate of a freemium product probably increases so much because there's so much less barrier to entry. You can say, hey, I'm trying this new product, try out the free version, and it takes work off your sales team, perhaps. Maybe it's not that simple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're hoping for, and we'll learn a lot once we launch this. We're only a couple weeks away, so we'll see how it goes, and I'll report back to you and let you know how the referrals work out. But yeah, no, we're pretty confident. The concept makes a lot of sense, and we've shared it with a lot of people, and they love it as well. Love the idea, so we're pretty confident that it's going to roll out really well.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to check in with people that I hold this podcast with and do a number 2 round after they get to a certain, because a lot of these podcasts are with newer founders or CEOs that are early on. They want a bit more just noise about what they're doing, and so the second round I'm very excited for with anyone. I haven't had one yet. Started fairly recently, but that'll be fun doing round 2s. You are a go-to-market guy, sales guy. You've done this for most of your career, if not all. Very successful at it. Something I noticed in your LinkedIn was you were a VP and a player coach at the same time, which I thought is just such a cool thing to see. Leading your team to success while also playing the part. What is your philosophy around that? Is that something you learned early on? Is that something that you actively coach to your managers of sales teams, sales managers, sales leaders? And what's the, philosophy behind that and why you choose to do that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely like you kind of hinted at there. So it's something I learned early on and observed early on in some of the sales organizations that I was part of. This is going back to companies like Siebel and Workday in the enterprise space, but where everyone in the organization, in the sales organization, even if there were like 3 or 4 levels of VPs, each of those VPs was a player coach on 1 or 2 deals per quarter. And I think it's just a great practice. I mean, first of all, most of these VPs came up through the sales ranks, and they're just fundamentally, they have very good sales skills and talent. And so leveraging that on, in addition to their management responsibilities, is just really good for the company. So I definitely saw that. And I think also one of the other things is it keeps you fresh, right? It keeps your skills fresh. And so then in conversations when you're talking with reps or team leads, you can have more empathy in those conversations, and you naturally do, because while you still keep on selling, you realize that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, and you don't like over time, if you're no longer selling and you're just managing people, human nature has it that you'll start forgetting about those losses and you'll just remember the wins. And then in your conversations with sellers and team leads, you'll just you won't have that same empathy. Whereas if you're a player coach mode, you still remember last week when somebody just gave you the bad news that they're working with a competitor, and you have those you're just much more empathetic and much more down to earth in your conversations with people about their own selling and how to improve on their particular sales campaigns.
You also just have an ear to the ground. You're on the ground floor.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. You know what the changing perceptions in the market are. It's if you can afford it in your schedule, it seems like there's no excuse not to do it. I had my first job out of college was a recruiter for Tech Systems, one of the largest privately held staffing organizations. And we had a recruiting manager who was a sales guy. He recruited for a little bit, and then he was a sales guy. He wanted to get into leadership, so he managed the recruiting team. And he didn't recruit at all. And then he's starting to push this methodology of call references for referrals. Like we always do references. Our candidates start calling references for referrals and for business development. And so to push that, he decided to call references on the floor. And I'll never forget. And he was not successful with any of his calls, but I remember, and everyone thought that was cool. Everyone liked that. And that might have been the most impactful thing he did on the floor for me personally, like in terms of, training or setting an example and just like team morale, if nothing else.
Well, it keeps you real. It keeps you humble, right?
So go to market is not something that I am incredibly familiar with. I'm in the staffing world, headhunting, recruiting, finding talent, mostly within engineering. Has it changed in the AI space? Is the AI space different than the other areas you've been in? Is this your first AI product company?
So, so I've been in it. This is my third AI company. So I've been in this space like for the last 8 years. I would say, things have changed dramatically. And if I go back, not just in that 8-year period, but if I go back, so my career started like 25 years ago. And if I go back to what selling was like then, I mean, it is just night and day. Like, and not just selling, but like the whole go-to-market process is so different now than it was then. But even within the last last few years, AI tools have come so far. Like, and if just to give you an example, like it used to be like pretty uncommon to actually record sales calls, like you're doing a Zoom call. Like even rewind the clock, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, that was not a normal thing to do. Right now, it's actually like it's basically the standard. Like nobody bats an eye if you're recording a call, and with like a Gong or a Fireflies or one of those. And that is one change, but then that basically enables a whole nother level of change, because it's so easy to go back and through, like I use Fireflies myself, so shout out to them. But it's such a great platform to quickly send follow-up notes to your customers that summarize the call, send the recording, send snippets of, highlight snippets of the recording. So you can build it into your sales workflow in a totally different way to just accelerate the information sharing. So it's dramatically different in that sense, but it also enables you. So that's one thing. The other thing is like it enables you to actually listen a lot better, because we always listen in real time, right? And we pick up on a lot of information. But then I'm always amazed if I go back and listen to a recording of a call, there are like big chunks of conversation that I feel like I'm hearing for the first time. And even though I'm on the call, right? And it's just like human nature, you forget a lot of stuff quickly, or at least I do. And these tools just enable you to listen so much better. So that's just an example, but I think it's across every workflow and go to market. You have various different AI tools that are just making you so much better and faster at your job. It's really incredible.
Couldn't agree more on the listening aspect. I
Yeah.
think part of it is, you're ready to jump in and say your piece after they say something, you want to respond. And that's something they kind of talk about in anything about sales and listening.
Yeah.
And, listen to listen, not to respond. But it's also human nature. Don't, get your word in. And
Yeah.
I listen to these back over every time, and it's the same experience.
Yeah.
If you're teaching a class on go to market for a product company today, what's the number one moral of the story or lesson that you want to get across?
I think if I were teaching a class, I would say, there's a couple things. One is having a very good grasp of who your customer is, and then like kind of as part of that, who's not your customer. So who do you not want to spend time trying to build up a relationship with? But really understand who your target customer is, and then also kind of understand in their words what their needs are, what their problem is, and how they would describe the problem, and kind of start your sales conversations with the problem, with your view of what their problem could be, and then ask for validation on that. And that will quickly tell you and tell the customer whether they're in the right conversation or not. So I think that's the second thing. And then the third thing is figuring out, okay, what alternatives does the customer have? Let's say they agree with you, they have the problem, they have some needs in that area. What are their different options? Like realistically speaking, what are their different options? What are the pros and cons of those? And in understanding that, so you can credibly talk through that with a customer and not dismiss those options, but just like be able to provide an educated point of view on them. And then the fourth thing is having a good sense of what the economic value of your solution is. So you're not just selling like better tech that seems better, but you also have like you've actually done some research with current customers around, okay, how does this really move the dial in terms of like economic impact and ROI? So having like a fundamental belief that you are adding economic value to your customers, and being able to articulate that, but also have a conversation with them about that, so that it's not just something you believe, but it's something that through a conversation they come to believe, and they come to understand, like, yeah, you know what, if we do go down this path and we partner with this company, we will likely improve these particular financial metrics, and that's going to hit our bottom line in this way, so that they fundamentally kind of understand the framework there, and they're kind of thinking about the solution in those terms, because then as they make decisions on their project, they will guide towards the higher economic outcome, which is a win for them, but it's also a win for you, because then you're more likely to be retained as a solutions provider.
Is that the philosophy of, I don't know if you've heard this, one of the first sales tactics that I learned, dragging them through the glass of making sure they understand the pain that they're going to experience without you?
I have not heard. I have not. If there's a book around that, I have not read it. But and I haven't. I think I've heard that expression. But yeah, no, yeah. It basically that is a bit of what it is, right? Hopefully there's less dragging. Hopefully hopefully that they're already walking through the glass and want a pair of shoes, right? So, you know.
What do you think about competition when building Implicit or any company? You pay attention to competitors at all?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in our space, the big competitors are is basically build your own, and then there are also some alternatives in the marketplace that are, I would say, more sort of general purpose customer support AI solutions. So those are kind of the two big categories of competitors, and they're definitely there's credible solutions that you can develop for the same problem that we're solving with those alternatives. So there's I don't discount that. Those are realistic alternatives, and we don't hold it against a customer if they look at those alternatives and they take a very good look at us and decide, for their particular needs, maybe one of the alternatives is better. No hard feelings. We stay in touch, and we track how their project goes, and if there's a moment in the future to re-engage, we'll definitely take advantage of that. But yeah, no, we take our competition very seriously. We don't discount it, and yeah, so that's kind of the overall perspective on alternatives that customers can choose.
What would be an example there? Like, what are some signs that they are set up for failure in their current method without you? Um,
Yeah,
at what
so we do see a fair number of people that are like working with, I don't want to name like a specific large competitor, but there are like large providers out there that provide LLMs and then, some services around those. And there's no doubt these LLMs are absolutely transformational and very, very powerful, and applied to this problem can be very effective. However, sometimes people set expectations really high in terms of what you can do with like an enterprise version of an LLM right out of the gate, and that sets customers up for just really high expectations that maybe they can hit if they have the right set of resources in house, but more likely than not, they will fall short, and then they'll be backpedaling within their company, and nobody wants to be, explaining why a particular project that they thought was going to take weeks actually took months, that they thought was going to cost, a couple $100,000, it ran into the millions. Those types of projects, nobody wants to be associated with that, and so we can kind of help those customers if they are in that path. We can help them, change course and save their project by partnering with us.
there's a podcast I did with a gentleman here in Colorado. He builds software for companies based on what they need, and he was in the room when Molson Coors was deciding on onboarding SAP. And he credits SAP to the destruction of Coors and having to sell out to a conglomerate because their system was just so big and so slow and just
Yeah.
not what they needed. And they spent so much money on it. He was in the room and he retorted once, and they said, not interested in your opinion." And that was that.
That's a bummer. Yeah.
I mean, those choices can be so significant,
Yep.
and you never get fired for hiring IBM is something I've learned in
Yeah.
this podcast. It was a quote, definitely not anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that rings true, obviously in a different context now, but yeah, those decisions can make such a big difference in terms of how you see the future taking shape. It's anyone's guess. I think a lot of people have the doomerism. A lot of people are techno optimists. Some people somewhere in the middle. It's no doubt to me the amount of people that are on the market looking for jobs right now. I see that, and the top 10%, top 5% of talent doesn't seem like they're ever going to have trouble finding jobs. But you think back to how our society has evolved, and most people started as farmers, and then people weren't farming anymore, and then they were in the factory, and then they weren't in the factory anymore. And so much of this kind of comes down to imagination. It's like what could be the future, and it's anyone's guess. How do you see AI impacting the workforce in general as a CEO, someone driving companies?
Well, I'm definitely on the optimistic side of things, and as I definitely see this changing a lot of services jobs, right? But if were, well, I am in a services role, as a leader and as a go-to-market leader, as a company leader, as a seller, and so I embrace these tools, and I would encourage anyone, if you're whatever service that you're in, experimenting with different tools, figuring out which tools work for you, how you can use them in your day to day for various different tasks to do a better job, right? And I think that having that sort of mindset is like, hey, these are tools to make me better at whatever I'm doing. Then you're on the right side of the transformation, and you're riding the wave versus getting like engulfed by the wave. And I've seen this before. I have, if I look back over my, lifespan, there was the internet revolution, and obviously very different than AI, but like people's emotional response and how you kind of approach that is kind of similar. And then we had the big mobile revolution, which it's just kind of the same thing. Like some people embraced it, some people didn't. And now AI is sort of the third big wave that I'm seeing in my lifetime. And I think what the commonality is just your mindset in terms of how you approach it, and just realize like, hey, these are tools, albeit very different tools, but these are tools that you can use both in your professional and your personal life to improve yourself and be better. And if you take that mindset, then I'm pretty sure you'll be just fine, right? And yeah, maybe your industry will change, maybe your job will change, but you'll be one of the people driving that change, or benefiting from that change, versus one of the people that's getting just overwhelmed by it and is standing on the sideline, kind of scratching their head, wondering.
I see it empowering a lot of builders. I
Yeah,
see a lot of people probably working at 20%, 30% capacity at these enterprises,
yeah.
and unleash that. I think that will happen. I think you'll have many more companies, many
Yeah.
more entrepreneurs. But
Well, absolutely. So one thing I'll add to that, so like if I look at our development team, our engineers, I mean, one of the things that we're driving is AI adoption. And so using tools like Cursor and Lovable, like these are game changers if you're a developer. And but it comes back fundamentally to mindset. Like if you embrace like, hey, these are going to make you a better developer. They're going to make you faster, more effective, have more impact if you embrace these as tools to do that. And then you'll be just fine. You'll ride this wave to success. Whereas like if you kind of start digging in and start pointing out where these tools, where they have flaws and things like that, you get kind of into this negative cycle. And unfortunately, I've seen people kind of get into that negative mindset, and then they underutilize these tools. And where does that leave them? It leaves them actually putting themselves at a competitive disadvantage to the person that's sitting next to them that is using these tools. So I think it takes a little bit of faith in yourself, actually, and in your skill set. Embrace these tools, and then you do actually end up being much more impactful, and more creative, more innovative, in a shorter amount of time. And that's just a recipe for long-term success.
are you utilizing any tools in your day to day?
Yeah, so I mentioned Fireflies before, so definitely that's a go-to for me, like every call that I'm on, and I spend a lot of my day on calls. I use ChatGPT a lot for quick research, like just on calls or just in between, like quickly finding information. I also use ChatGPT just to kind of smooth out my prose as well. I'd like to think of myself as a good writer, but until I used ChatGPT, I didn't quite realize how much better I could be. So that's another one. I also use Grammarly, to improve my emails as well, and slides and things like that. Because just it's like I always joke that there's at least one error in every spreadsheet that I send out, which is totally true. But the same goes for like there's at least one typo in every email, one presentation that I put out, and with a Grammarly, you catch that type of stuff, right? And it just doesn't sneak out as like it used to. So those are a couple that immediately come to mind. And then if we look at our marketing tech stack, there's a whole nother set of AI tools. We don't need to go into those now, but like up and down the marketing tech stack, there's additional ones too.
Hiring for a lot of those YC marketing tech stack companies.
Yeah.
The Grammarly is so necessary. The current education system doesn't teach people how to write. And I noticed that as I was managing new grads in previous jobs. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you to use this, but within a day or two, you're not going to need me to tell you to use it because you're going to be so happy you're using it. And the response was, how did I get through college without this? It's like,
No, I see it with my own kids. Like I have, two high school age kids, and they both use Grammarly, and it's great that they do because otherwise I've seen what their writing looks like otherwise. you know.
They don't teach you how to write. There's like very little reading and writing in school. You can get away with doing so little.
Yeah.
Even in college, I got my degree with very little actual. I credit most of my education to my parents taking me to the library as a kid. We grew up without a TV, and so we go to the library. I have 8 siblings, so it'd just be you bus on over to the library, the magic school bus, the family car, and then everyone grabs a stack of 20 books, and you read your stack, and then you hand it over to your brother or sister, and they give you your stack, and that was our family entertainment.
That's awesome. Thank your parents for that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I said thank your parents for that. That's
Yeah, I do. I do all the time. And every year I get older, it's more impressive what my mom did raising 9 kids too. It's just crazy. I cannot imagine. What would you tell your earlier founder self now that you've been through a few cycles? Or is there no real secret? You just got to figure it out.
I think the resilience piece, like I think just realizing that you're going to have good days and bad days, and in particular on the bad days, remind yourself of that. I think that's very true in entrepreneurial life because the highs and lows are so extreme. I would definitely say that, and then I would also say kind of just sticking with it, right? Like just stick with it, stay focused. Don't chase things that are close, but not really what you're doing. But stay focused on the customer, their problem, and your vision around how you're going to solve that, and stay focused despite the distractions that come up. Right. I think that would have helped me. I think it's still good advice today. I got to remind myself of that too. But yeah, there's resilience and kind of staying focused.
I couldn't agree more there.
Yeah.
This episode or this podcast is called Peaking. What are some peaks in your life? Not necessarily the highest. We don't need to call that out yet. The best is yet to come. But what are some of the best moments that you've experienced in your personal and professional life?
Yeah, well, I think on the personal side, it's definitely having a family, having kids, having a wife that we've been through a lot together, and have those are the big moments, and then cherishing the key milestones with your family. My daughter just graduated from high school last week, so that was like one of those milestones, and family came in for that, and just enjoying those and making the most of those moments, being present, all of that. Though I would say on the personal side. On the professional side, it's being part of like teams that are really clicking and having success and having fun at the same time. And those and I've had a couple teams that I've been part of, either as an individual or leading teams where we've been in that space where we're just doing great in the market and having fun at it. And it doesn't last forever, right? You might be in that sort of situation for 2, 3, 4 years with a company and just enjoying that and during those times just really being into it, right, and working hard, and enjoying it, right, because that is just infectious, and then you have more success, and that just builds the team dynamic, and which leads to more success, right? And so I've had a couple of those chapters in my career, and those are definitely the high points. But then they're fleeting too. Like there's some magic there where everything is kind of clicking. You're in the right team, right market, right product, right economy, and things go really well. And then one of those things changes, and one, or actually probably more than one, a couple of those things change over time, and then you're no longer in that sweet spot, and those are then you kind of end up in those more of those lows, and you kind of have to figure out, hey, can I get back to where we were, or is it time to kind of look around for something new?
Yeah, did experience one of those, and then we were acquired by private equity, and said, okay, on to the next chapter.
Yeah, no, I forget I read a book recently about this a couple of years ago about quitting and like when to quit, and it's actually a totally underrated skill, but it's something that we all can get better at.
I mean, it's like selling a stock. You don't need to hold on to everything forever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you wanted to get out, and where can people find you?
Yeah, no, so this was great. So thanks again, Wyatt. Really appreciate it. Have fun this weekend at the wedding. That sounds awesome. And yeah, so I'm just at John@implicit.cloud. John@implicit.cloud. So that's where people can find me. But thanks for having me. Thanks for having us here. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, yeah. I would love to have you back after a few product releases.
Yeah.
Any adjustments or pivots was a pleasure on my side as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Wyatt.
Thanks so much.
Yep. See ya.